Welcome to A Meaningful Marketplace.
I'm Sarah Masoni from Oregon State University's Food Innovation Center, where I've helped countless dreamers launch their new food products. It's the science of taking a food delight from the kitchen to mass manufacturing and still keeping its great taste. That's what I do. I've been called the woman with the $1 million palate, although I haven't tried to cash that check yet. Listen in weekly for real-life stories.
I'm Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce and author of Preservation Pantry, modern canning from root to top and stem to core. I love inspiring business owners to get started on their journey, encourage folks to be part of their local community, and I'm excited to help business owners tell their stories. Hello and welcome to Masoni and Marshall, the Meaningful Marketplace. We are here weekly to discuss the journeys of food entrepreneurs. We are glad you have joined us today as we bring you stories of hope and inspiration. This is Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce.
And Sarah Masoni of Oregon State University's Food Innovation Center. Hi, Sarah Marshall.
Hey, buddy. Nice to see ya.
Good to see you, too.
Well, I have some sad news, which is that today is our final Idaho episode.
Oh, no! Well, wait a second. It's not really the final one because we'll do it again next year.
We're going to come back?
I think so.
That hasn't been confirmed, but if Sarah thinks so, I'm going to say yes. Because I want more Idaho. I'm not ready to say goodbye. I don't want it to be over. I want more Janna. I want more Idaho. I want to meet more fun buddies.
And all the beautiful places in Idaho. Boise.
Yeah. So I'm cool with that. I won't shed a tear if you're saying that you think there will be more.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, to just tell you the things that I have been up to this weekend, because
what have you been up to?
I do love Idaho, but I want to just brag about our state, Oregon, for just a minute, because I got to spend a lot of time in wine country this weekend.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite places to be.
The bouncy house picture?
Yeah. Bouncy house is my favorite place to be. Well, it is definitely my kids' favorite place to be. So we go out and do an event every year. It's called Silobration. It's out at Abbey Road Farm, which is it's in Carlton. It's a little bit outside of McMinnville, Oregon, known for wine country, of course. So Abbey Road makes beautiful wines, and they grow lots of grapes. And they're a pretty new winery as far as Oregon wine country goes. But we spend time out there every year for their Silobration. So it's called Silobration because at the winery, they have all these silos, and it's set up like a B&B so people can stay in the silos. And this wonderful chef, Will make you breakfast out there.
Did you stay in the silo?
No, I haven't done it. I would love to someday. Savings goals, I think, would be the way to put that politely. But it's a wonderful, magical place. It just got written up as one of the best places in Oregon to get married. They have just beautiful acreage, and you can wander all around the property. They are celebrating, that their grapes are all growing and they're harvesting and they're starting to press wine and things like that. So they bring families, they invite everybody. There's all these activities for kids. They do yoga in the mornings. They do sometimes a car show, and they have all these activities for kids. So my whole family comes out. We play lots of games. They have giant Jenga and checkers. But the thing about it is that you're playing all these things and you're having all this fun and you're in these bouncy houses in the middle of like the most beautiful wine country. Like I feel like whenever I go out there, it feels like being in France. Like it's just these rolling hills, beautiful grapes.
I'm not going to lie. When they came to the Food Innovation Center like 20 some odd years ago and said they were going to make like a Airbnb hotel out of silos, I thought, there's no way that's going to work. And look at how great it is.
It's the most beautiful, magical place. If you guys haven't been out there, go out there. They do events all the time. It's open to the public to go check out. You can see all the donkeys and chickens.
I mean, the reason I even bring that up is not because I want to be negative, but what I want to say is that we just really don't know when somebody has a vision if they're going to be successful or not.
They pulled that vision off to the T.
It's amazing.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's great. They also do a fun holiday event that we go out and do every year. And they do a Christmas light walk. So you can walk through the vineyard and they put up lights. And the whole community, McMinnville community is super rad. And doing all of these events over the years, I've just gotten to know a lot of the people and a lot of the business owners. And, the mayor always comes out to everything. It's very fun. So if you have a chance to visit Oregon, if you don't live here, or even if you do, I would recommend McMinnville, Abbey Road Farm. Go check it out. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I'm still on a high from spending my weekend out there. It was lovely.
That's cool.
Yeah, super fun. Well, we have been partnering with the Regional Food Business Center to bring you guests from our 6-state region. We are in our final episode of the great state of Idaho, and we would like to welcome our co-host who has been along for this journey, Janna from the University of Idaho TechHelp. Welcome.
Yes, it's been great. I've enjoyed our past 2 months of chatting with Idaho's entrepreneurs and food makers, movers and shakers. So it's been great. I'm glad Sarah says that we'll be able to come back and introduce even more great Idaho companies next year. So
Yes.
that'll be fun.
We've had a great time getting to know you and getting to know the people that you get to work with and the people that you have brought us from Idaho. It's been such a great, wonderful time. And I just want to thank you for bringing everyone along. I've ordered products from our guests.
Me too.
I've connected with them on social media. I feel like if I go to Idaho, I will go visit. So it's just been a really fun journey. So thanks for heading that for us.
Thanks, Janna.
Yeah, thanks for giving us the opportunity. We're happy to share all of our varied products that we have across the state. It's been fun.
And we would like to encourage you to connect with your state by signing up for the Regional Food Business Center newsletter. It's a breeze to sign up. You just go to Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center.com, hit connect with us, and choose the button to receive newsletters. And we want to thank our sponsor for supporting the Meaningful Marketplace podcast. Thank you for helping us spread the word about small business owners and entrepreneurs. Let's hear a word from our sponsor. The Northwest and Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center is the proud sponsor of the Meaningful Marketplace podcast, giving a voice to food from across the 6-state region of Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. The Food Business Center supports Northwest and Rocky Mountain food industry makers as part of the USDA's National Network of Food Business Centers, supporting a more resilient, diverse, and competitive food system as a go-to source for small and mid-tier food and farm businesses with a focus on underserved communities, providing education in the form of technical knowledge, business programs, and industry news. We sponsor trade shows, meetups, and conferences to connect growers, producers, retailers, distributors, and processors, all to stimulate business and raise the standards of our storied food industry. Join us as we travel through the 6-state region, learning more about food makers, food hubs, and food systems. Visit the website at Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Businesses.com to get connected. And I would like to introduce you to our guest today, Brett Stevenson of Hillside Grain, harvesting and milling grain in Silver Creek, Idaho. We're delighted you could come on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to talk to you, Sarah, and great always to see you, Janna.
And we always like to connect our listeners to you on social media and online. What's the best way that people can find you?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Hillside Grain. My website is hillsidegrain.com. It's all pretty easy and straightforward.
Perfect. And we kind of like to start at the beginning of when you started your business. So what inspired you to start growing and milling grain?
My family's been growing grain for about, over 50 years in the Silver Creek area, Silver Creek is just south of Sun Valley. Basically, I wanted to add my own chapter on top of what my dad has created, kind of a vertical integration. It also seemed like kind of a natural fit. We were producing, or still are producing, great barley for the brewing industry, yet it all gets shipped out of state. And I kept having these inquiries from brewers throughout the region and locally for our barley, and it has to be malted. And so, if we grow wheat, it has to be milled. Everything needs another layer of processing. And we're in an ag community, and at least historically, it's been a lot of alfalfa, beef, and barley, and all of that has kind of gone outside the community. And I think more recently, we see a shift where there are producers at varying scales that are actually producing things that we can eat. So it's kind of this crazy phenomenon where I wanted to be part of the food system, not just the agricultural system. And so that was kind of like some of the, my motivation to start milling flour and processing some of our own grain, so I could provide it at a local and regional scale in a way, a more consumer friendly way.
We like that inspiration and and to know the story behind why you started what you started. So, when you mentioned that you're stone milling the grains that you grow, I don't really know what that means. What I picture is a big stone and someone grinding it, or I picture a big stone and like a horse grinding it. Is that what's happening?
I saw that out once with a horse. That's funny.
No, I would love to see that with horses. No, we don't. We don't use horses. A lot of motors. I've got over 40 motors in the flour mill and a great big stone mill that was custom made in Europe. It's enormous. It's about 5 feet. The stones are 5 feet across and they're 1.5 tons each. The bottom stone is stationary. The top stone moves. And so the grain goes into the top and it sort of gets ground and pushed around to the outside and comes out. And the whole system on the flour side of things is connected pneumatically. So through air pipes, it's contained. Upstream from the stone mill, I have a roller mill. So I have a combination system, which is really rare in the US. Most systems are massive with roller mills. It's a really kind of industrial way of producing white flour. So it's taking all the bran and the germ and all the good stuff out. That's kind of what our whole flour system in North America, probably largely globally, is based on sort of this large scale commodity white flour shelf stable sort of production. The stone mill is not used like that. It is retaining a lot of the bran and germ and it's kind of grinding it all together. So you retain a lot of that nutritional value in the flour itself. So my system's super unique. It's a funky size. It's one of a kind. Yeah, I call it my massive Rube Goldberg machine, where the product goes in one side and you can see little sight glasses. You can see it moving and it comes out. If all goes well, it comes out the other side in this beautiful flour.
And you call it fresh flour.
Yeah, exactly. I do. And I think that's a big deal. Personally, I do. Again, kind of that roller mill concept that started in, early 1900s. And that was all about that shelf stability and wanting that white color. And so they were sifting off all that germinal, the good stuff. And white flour can last a long time and it doesn't have any flavor. What I'm doing is I would consider semi-perishable. I would say, 6 months was probably the range in which it should be used. And it's fresh. It has a fragrance. It smells good. It tastes good. And I think when you buy kind of old white flour, it almost is like ground cardboard. There's like nothing to it. There's no character. There's no flavor. There's no nutritional value. So yeah, I think fresh flour and this idea of a high extraction flour with bran and germ in it is unfortunately really rare in the US. I think it's a little more common in Europe, and it used to be really common in the US. There was a day pre-roller mill where every community had their own stone mill, probably all with horses. And then we kind of moved more and more to a centralized food system, and it was all about efficiencies well over quality. And yeah, there's been a little bit of a resurrection of stone mills in recent years, which is pretty neat to see. I think a lot of bakeries are getting, kind of like a 2-foot size stone mill or so, kind of a medium sized stone mill in their bakeries. And that's awesome to have grain, because the grain stores really well. The flour, if it's somewhat intact, shouldn't really store that well. So they're storing the grain, putting it into the mill at the bakery, which is really cool. Because, fresh bread and fresh pasta, things like that, that's one thing. But if you have old flour going into fresh bread, I don't know, it's still not that good. Fresh flour makes a big difference.
And it doesn't always function as well either, I think, when it's been sitting around for a while.
I think that's right. With that bran and that germ in there too, and some freshness, your sourdoughs and your starters are far more lively and active. We actually started an on-farm bakery about 2 years ago as well. So now we have the full vertical integration, which is really fun and really rewarding. And it's been received really well in the community.
Are you baking too, Brett? Are you doing the baking?
I'm not doing the baking. I don't have that many hours in the day. I'm just doing the milling. And then I do a lot of the bread deliveries and kind of the oversight of the bakery. But we do have a couple of people that are helping us with the baking. but that's been the most rewarding. I call that the cherry on top. I feel like the farm is like the biggest base, and then the flour mill is kind of mid-scale, and then the little cherry on top, the most gratifying is or most rewarding is the bakery, because you're actually eating a product that is grown and totally processed from the ground up here locally. And it's also kind of a bizarre phenomenon to work through all this with my dad, who I mentioned has been doing this he's 88. He's been farming, and he still is running the farm and driving the combine for over 50 years. Up until recently, he hadn't actually eaten anything that he grew, which I think is kind of fascinating and not uncommon for farmers. Like, it's such a bizarre thing that we are so detached, and we're in such this big kind of centralized system that you just ship your products out.
Some people don't even want to eat the stuff they grow in their home gardens.
Wow.
I've found that over time that happens. They just don't feel comfortable.
Then why do you grow it?
I don't know, but I'm just saying, I see all kinds of different types of people.
Janna's not having that one. She doesn't like it. Well, you mentioned that, your flour it has like a lower shelf life. How did you figure out what that shelf life would be? Was Janna part of that at all? Because that's my guess.
No, but maybe I should talk to Janna about it.
Well, we could do a shelf life study if you wanted to. I guess I was thinking about fatty acids, because you have the bran in there. Maybe there could be some rancidity that could happen. Exactly, I know that happens with brown rice. So I was thinking that could be an off flavor.
I think it's the germ more, because there is a little bit of oil in the germ that will go rancid. And my very informal test, I leave my own flour around for my own use. And I honestly have yet to see it go, quote unquote, rancid, where there's like a really off distinguishable smell or flavor to it. I think it's more like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison. Well, just the actual
flat
quality
doesn't taste as good.
Yeah. I think it's more of that.
In the dairy industry, we say flat lacks freshness.
Mm-hmm.
The milk's still good. It's just not as good as when it was really fresh.
I think that's more what we're going to find around 6 months than actual rancidity.
So I noticed you have some other, so on your list of some of the baked goods that you have some other grains, purple barley, black barley, and some other things that you fold in. Are those grains that you're also growing?
Yes, I'm trying. I'm having a horrible fight with the wildlife. I'm not sure who exactly is the culprit that's eating my purple barley, but
that's interesting. Purple barley.
Somebody comes through. I think last year, I think it was mice, and they just decimated it. Another interesting variety that we're growing is a bread lab variety that is like a rainbow in the field. It's really cool. It has purples and blues and reds and browns and blondes. And the idea from the bread lab at Washington State University is they call it throwing chaos at chaos. Rather than making it all uniform like most seed breeders and growers are striving for, they have immense diversity in their genetic composition. And the idea is that it is more resilient in a changing climate. And we're, as growers, definitely experiencing all sorts of climate variabilities that we've never had to contend with before. And so these varieties of wheat that actually should be able to, in theory, adapt more to those changes is really exciting. How that translates into bread products is really cool too, because the dough and the bread kind of has this purple hue and it has a much greater flavor profile than our regular hard red wheats. So I call it a hard rainbow wheat. It's called Eileen, or a climate change wheat variety.
So tell us about how some of your advisors work with your business. You have Dr. Stephen Jones. He's from the Bread Lab. He's the director there. How does he help you with your business?
He's helped me a little bit with these different varieties. I also was growing some perennial wheat from him called Salish. It didn't actually work in our climate very well. It didn't end up being a perennial, which was too bad, because I think those perennials, I'm still holding my breath that we'll get a perennial that works well for us here. That can be a game changer, environmentally speaking, and from a farmer's perspective, because You don't have to irrigate it. The root system gets like 10 to 15 feet deep. You go into the spring with already a ground cover. Pretty much you're just going over it with a combine at the end of the year, and that's it. That's your only input. It's amazing for soil erosion and weed competition and carbon sequestering, because your plant is that much bigger with that much deeper roots. So that perennial wheat is something that, and it's not a GMO. It's just hybridized, which is quite different than GMO. But that's a big deal if we can get those kind of varieties figured out. Oh, he's also just introduced me to some cookbooks that have some baking books. Mark Vettry's book that I got the mill profiled in, and me and my work, which was cool. And then he invited me down to a talk at the Culinary Institute of America. So he's been really helpful. And then I have a nutritionist or a dietitian who helps kind of verify. I'm really into health and nutrition, and I just read a lot, but I'm not trained. I don't have the expertise. So I bounce ideas off of Kate Egan a lot for backup on the nutritional aspect of high extraction flour and, things like it being low on the glycemic index, having more fiber, nutritional value, and why that's a lot better for us than regular white flour.
I love when people get into all the facts of bread making and they kind of nerd out on it. It's one of my favorite things to hear people talk about that and fermenting.
Makes it taste better.
Yeah, I love to hear everybody get excited about it. It's so fun. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I have a very easy, fun game for the three of you. We'll be right back.
Oregon State University's College of Agricultural Sciences and the Food Innovation Center are proud sponsors of Meaningful Marketplace. With a mission to serve all Oregonians, we are committed to giving voice to those whose food and agricultural stories are not always heard. By providing access and opportunity for a more diverse and just food system, because food brings people together.
Okay, we're back from our break. Janna, I'm sorry, but we're going to play another game. It's been Janna's least favorite segment, but it's an easy one. I made it very easy for our final episode because I think you're going to nail it. But I'm going to have the three of you work together to give me the 5 top Idaho crops. And so you'll have to decide, the three of you, what the top 5 would be. Ready, go.
Is this on dollars? This is on acreage? What's the format here?
I'm going to say dollars. I don't know. I don't Google it, though, because I Googled it and I have my fact to check from who it's from, but I don't want to tell you who it's from right now. So.
Potatoes.
Yeah, I'm assuming potatoes has got to be in there.
Onions.
Sugar beets. Alfalfa,
we also produce
barley.
A lot of mint and alfalfa. And then I don't know if we're getting into animal products or it's just field.
I'd say beef. Probably beef.
Yeah, because trout and beef, and then even the sturgeon eggs, the caviar. There we go. I was trying to think of it.
Caviar.
We are the #1 producer of caviar in the U.S.
Whoa.
But I don't know if that's considered part of this conversation, because if we're just talking farm crops.
Well, I just think that you're just throwing out rad information, so I'll take it. But I'll also let you know that
Did we get any of them right?
You've already named them all. So good job.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
I'm glad Janna was on our team, aren't you, Brett?
Yes. Thanks, Janna.
So my facts came from the Farm Bureau of Insurance. So this would be the farmers reporting, I'm guessing, how much money they make. So I'm guessing it's based on sales. But potatoes, #1.
Yeah.
Hay, #2, which you said alfalfa. I think that's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's mostly going to be alfalfa. There's some oat hay, there's some grass hay, but by and far the receipts will be alfalfa.
Yeah, well, they said that was #2, and it just became #2 this year because it was wheat was #2, but now it's wheat. And then sugar beets, #4, barley, #5. That's it. That's your top 5 crops.
Wow.
You named them. Good job, ladies.
So I made a recipe with the help from a former person who was working here as a pastry chef for a barley scone mix.
Ooh, yum.
Yeah, you might try barley scones for your bakery. They are so good.
I love barley flour. I was just
Yeah.
talking to a farmer friend about that this morning. Barley flour is delicious. It's
When
just a
we,
little harder to work with.
yeah, so it's about half and half
Yeah,
wheat and barley. But when I make those scones here, people go crazy for them. Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, I did an event with Culinary Breeding Network where they were trying to get people to know more about purple barley, which was, being grown here, and they're experimenting with it. So I wrote a recipe for purple barley fritters and made them at one of the events for people to eat. And everyone loved it. They were so pretty, so beautiful, so tasty, so easy. So I'm down with the barley for sure. And purple barley too was just like so fun to work with.
It's amazing what you can convey through good food, isn't it? I mean, I feel like we are largely conditioned in this country to eat and like white flour, white products, but you put something out there that's a purple, delicious treat of some sort, or even, some of my varieties or the way I mill it, it comes out kind of darker. In the bread lab, they're great crusaders for whole wheat, and it looks a
Hmm.
lot darker. It doesn't look
Yeah.
as appealing, but you try it and you're like, oh my God, that is so much better than any of the white junk that I've see 90% of the time. So it's pretty amazing what you can convey through, I think, good food.
It comes back from those early European kind of that white required extra work, so it was supposed to be a higher in your economic scale, right? So if you could
Mhm.
afford the white flour, then it was better, right? And that's back in monarchy stage of over in Europe, and that still some of that stuff just sticks, and it goes
Hmm.
through generations that
It was like
that's how
a
great grandma
luxury
and grandma, and
item.
that's, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's a wild transition too, isn't it? Because now we're at a point where it's almost flip-flopped, where you
Hmm.
have to
Exactly.
seek out and pay more for the darker, more whole grain, fresher stuff. I mean, I'm trying to
Yes.
keep my price point as low as possible. So it's really approachable by most people in best case scenario. But it is just kind of it's a wild thing to kind of reflect on over the past couple hundred years, like where grain and bread have taken us and how they've evolved.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I always like to look at people's recipes on their website, and you have some really yummy looking ones. There's a homemade fig Newton. Did you
Oh
develop
yeah.
that recipe?
No, I did not develop the recipes on there, but I have used our flour with all of them, or friends have, and they're great.
That sounds really fun. I also noticed that some of the things that you make that are coming out of your bakery are really interesting. You have a walnut raisin bread. You have a pizza crust that you make that looked really good, and maybe you wholesale it. If some of our listeners are liking the things that you're talking about, the flours, the stuff from the bakery, can people only get that from you directly in Idaho, or do you mail things? Like, how does everybody get your stuff?
I have an online store for the flour at www.hillsidegrain.com. For the bread, we just sell it through local markets in the Wood River Valley right now. Because I'm so obsessed with the freshness, I'm not sure we'll ever expand beyond that, because I really why I value it so much is because it is fresh. And then I do have flour customers in Boise and Pocatello and Salt Lake, and I use Charlie's Produce as a distributor, and so I'm getting more and more out there to other bakeries. And I guess that's one thing I would just encourage customers, if you are interested, ask your local bakery where they get their flour, and try to, encourage them to source it well. Flour is not a very expensive ingredient. It's really the labor that goes into bread that makes bread more expensive, but the actual flour is really quite cheap. So you might as well be getting good flour.
I was wondering if people can just buy the whole grains from you and mill them at home.
Yes, I do sell whole wheat berries, occasionally, not a lot. My systems, it's a lot of effort to do it. And sometimes it's easier just to keep it in the system and sell the flour instead. And because our flour is so fresh, I don't make it. I'm not super inclined to do it, but I can, and I will, depending on how my workload is, frankly, because it is a little awkwardly. It's a little bit of effort in the system, just the way it's all kind of set up. But I've seen people doing that more and more, like a little countertop mill at home. They're little tiny ones, like a Cuisinart kind of style mill. So that's pretty neat to be able to do that and throw some whole wheat in and make whole wheat pancakes and things like that.
Yeah, sounds yummy.
We wanted to talk about harvest season because we almost couldn't do the show because I'm pretty sure you're in the middle of it. Are you?
Yeah, we are just winding down. Harvest is kind of fast and furious, as you can imagine. It's chaotic, and because this year actually went quite smoothly, but often we deal with mechanical issues, and that can put us back a couple days. We can deal with weather issues, and that can put us down quite a bit too. The big risk in August are hailstorms. Hail can come through, and we can lose a lot of crops. So that's hence the big pressure to kind of get it in while we can. Our wheat this year, for the most part, was looking pretty good. We did have some issues with one variety where it just germinated at wildly different rates. And I think that was because our weather pattern was really cold and then to really hot. Again, just kind of like strange weather patterns. Last year, we ended up getting 2 inches of rain in one day in August because of the Hurricane Hillary off of the West Coast, all of which are totally unheard of for us in August. Having a hurricane off the West Coast, that doesn't usually, I don't remember that ever happening. And then getting that much rain, our average is like 12 or less a year. To get 2 in one day during harvest caused a lot of sprout damage. So it's definitely, weather's a big deal for farmers.
I have a question about, so you harvest the wheat and you take the little wheat berries off the stalks, I don't even know what it's called, the stems. What do you do with the straw or the plant part of the wheat production? What happens to that?
Combines are incredible machines. I'm not sure if you guys have ever ridden in a combine or seen one up close, but they are unbelievable. I have been around them all my life, and I still am absolutely amazed by what they can do. They basically mow it down with this massive header, and somehow in that whole apparatus, it cleans and winnows it and threshes it. And all of a sudden you have these big containers full of clean grain. It gets dumped into a truck, and then it goes off to storage. Out the back, spits straw, and you can either put it in a windrow to bale it and sell it as straw, or you can spread it. And it is an organic matter, and it's great for the soil. So you could kind of have two options. And we usually oscillate between the two, sort of depending on what the market's doing and what our soil's doing. But if there's a good market for straw, it's kind of hard not to bale it and sell it.
Yeah. Do you do those big round bales, or do you do rectangle bales? I'm always curious.
We do the great big rectangular bales, like the 110. We call them 110 bales, even though the hay bales weigh more and the straw bales, I think, way less. But we seem to call them all 1-ton bales.
The only part of that process that I've seen is in horror movies when somebody's hand comes up out of a grain silo after they've fallen in it. That's it.
Yeah. One time I had a rabbit, and my bale of straw had a snake in it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I've seen a lot of that. Oh, yeah. That happens. Unfortunately,
it just picks up everything, I'm sure.
More than, yeah. And the warnings, Sarah, the warnings on the auger signs, they will have, how you have the little
fingers,
stick figure. Well, there will be like a person with an extended limb, and it's wound around the whole.
Oh, dear. That's spooky.
It's really bad.
I feel like that needs
the
to be
warning
in my
signs
horror
are very
movie.
graphic, and they do that a lot, and they'll grab people and arms and body, and it'll be wrapped around the auger, or they'll have chopped off stuff, and they get little fake blood color. Like, it is crazy, some of those warning signs they put on tractors.
What an interesting job to have, to be a designer of those tractor warnings.
It's effective.
I mean, someone does it. That's someone's job.
I steer clear of them.
Well, Unfortunately, ladies, it's the time I hate the most, which is where we have to wrap it up. So I want to make sure to send people to you directly to buy products from you. So where can they go to get your beautiful flour?
They can check out our website, www.hillsidegrain.com, and there's a little shop icon, and you can order flour up there. And then also, if you are visiting the Wood River Valley, you can go to any of the Atkinson's locations, and they stock everything.
Perfect. It was great to chat with you today and to meet you. I'm so glad that we got to spend some time together and I got to hear more about what you do. You're doing a great job carrying on the family business in a whole new way and getting your dad to eat his grains that he's grown his whole life. I mean, that is an accomplishment in its own. I'm digging it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he eats our bread just about every day and loves it. We all do. It's really fun, and it's really delicious, and it's really gratifying.
You did a perfect job of bringing it all full circle. I love that. And Janna,
Thank you, guys.
final episode, but to be continued. I'm hoping we get to chat with you again in the future.
Hey, Janna, are you coming to Portland this fall for the big retreat? Are you one of those people? No, we don't get to see you. Oh, darn. I was thinking maybe Sarah Marshall could meet you then in person.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I have clients over in Oregon through Oregon's MEP, so I do come over. So next time I'm scheduled to come over, I will let you guys know it because it would be great to meet in person. Because
That
it
would
would be fun.
So fun.
It was
meet up
fun
at the
having
farmers
this
market.
podcast with everybody for the last few months. So it was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
Let's
been
plan
great.
on it.
Yeah. We'll meet up for sure in the future. Well, we want to thank our listeners for tuning into the show. We love our food community and want to connect with you in person and online. You can reach out to Sarah and I on our Meaningful Marketplace podcast Instagram. We record live every week, but you can find us on your favorite podcast platforms like iTunes, Spotify, and now on YouTube. And we want to thank our production team for helping us make these episodes. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can send our production coordinator, Kayleen, an email at booking@joyofcreation.com. And we'll be back next week, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye for now.